My husband's parents always treated me like a servant, and he let them. But now that I left, they're furious that their perfect son has to cook his own meals. And I'm 32F, and I was married to Liam, 34M, for 6 years. I say was because I finally walked away, and let me tell you, his family did not take it well. Liam's parents, Gerard and Diane, always saw me as more of an accessory than a person. No, scratch that, they saw me as an extra pair of hands to make their golden son's life easier. And the worst part? Liam let them. He never stuck up for me, never told them to respect me, never once acted like I was his partner instead of his personal assistant. It wasn't always obvious at first. When we were dating, I thought they were just a little traditional. Diane would make little comments about how it's so important for a wife to take care of her husband and how men work hard. They deserve to be spoiled at home. I'd smile, nod, and brush it off because, hey, different generations, right? But once we got married, the expectations became impossible to ignore. The first time I really noticed it was at Thanksgiving, a few months after the wedding. We went to their house, and the moment I walked in, Diane handed me an apron and pointed me toward the kitchen. "Oh, Liam doesn't know his way around a stove," she laughed, waving off my hesitation. "Be a dear and help me out." She had me chopping, stirring, setting the table, even plating the food while the men sat in the living room watching football. When we finally sat down to eat, I barely had a second to take a bite before she nudged me. "The bread basket's empty, dear. Would you mind getting more?" I waited for Liam to say something, anything, but he was too busy laughing at some joke his dad told. So I got up and did it. And then I got up again when Gerard needed more gravy, and again when Diane wanted another glass of orange juice. By the time dessert rolled around, I realized I was the only woman still running around while Diane and Liam's sister, Heather, sat back and relaxed. The worst part? This wasn't just a one-time thing. Every single visit after that was the same story. At Christmas, I spent the entire day making appetizers and cleaning up while Diane gushed about how lucky Liam was to have me. When I got tired and tried to sit down, she'd find something for me to do. "Oh, honey, could you just clear that plate? Be a dear and check on the cookies?" It wasn't a request. It was an order wrapped in a smile. And Liam? He did nothing. If I complained later, he'd say, "Come on, babe, it's just how they are." Or, "They don't mean anything by it." But it wasn't just family events. It bled into our daily lives. Liam never lifted a finger at home. He wouldn't cook, wouldn't clean, wouldn't even pour his own cereal in the morning. "My mom always did that stuff," he'd say with a shrug. "It's just how I grew up." Well, I didn't grow up with a personal maid. I had a full-time job, just like him. I was exhausted, just like him. But somehow, I was the only one doing laundry, cooking dinner, running errands, and making sure there was always toilet paper in the house. One day, after coming home from a brutal shift, I found him sitting on the couch, playing video games, with a sink full of dishes I knew he had used. "Can you at least start the dishwasher?" I asked. He didn't even pause his game. I don't know how. Something in me snapped that day. But that was just the beginning. Because the moment I decided I was done playing housemaid, things got ugly. I stood there, staring at the back of Liam's head, my hands tightening into fists at my sides. He didn't know how to start a dishwasher? I had been at work for 10 hours. My feet ached. My head was pounding. And here he was, comfortably sprawled on the couch, his eyes locked on the screen, fingers moving effortlessly over the controller. He had all the energy in the world for this game, this meaningless match. But when it came to the smallest responsibility in our home, suddenly he was helpless. I swallowed down the frustration creeping up my throat. I had tried before, so many times, to explain how exhausting this was, how unfair it felt. Every single time, Liam either brushed it off or acted like I was making a big deal out of nothing. "Liam," I said carefully, keeping my voice even, "it's just pressing a button." He scoffed, shaking his head. "You're already better at it than me. You know I'd just mess it up." I let out a slow breath. I had two choices: argue, knowing he'd twist it into me nagging, or just do it myself again. And I knew which one he was expecting. but I was so tired of being predictable. Instead of touching the dishes, I turned and walked to our bedroom, shutting the door behind me. I stared at our bed, my side, always neat, and his side, a crumpled mess of sheets and pillows. I sat down and let myself feel the exhaustion settle into my bones. I wanted to cry, but I was too drained to even do that. This wasn't one bad day. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was my life. A pattern that had formed over years, slowly, like water carving into stone. Every moment that I let slide, every time I told myself it's not worth the fight, had built up to this. Me, sitting alone in a room, too tired to fight for respect in my own marriage. I didn't sleep well that night. The next morning, I woke up before Liam. I had work, but instead of getting up right away, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet. I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to start another day of this routine, going to work, coming home, picking up after a grown man who refused to lift a finger, being expected to thank him whenever he did the bare minimum. I thought about my future, about what another year of this would look like. 5 years. 10. Would I still be doing everything while he sat on the couch? Would I still be biting my tongue at his parents' house, pretending I didn't hear Diane's passive-aggressive remarks about how a wife's role is to make her husband's life easier? Would I still be hearing Heather giggle and say, "Liam's always been spoiled. That's just how he is," as if that made it acceptable? Would I be happy? The answer came so quickly, so clearly, that it almost startled me. No, I wouldn't be happy. I got up. I got dressed. I went to work. But something inside me had shifted. For the first time, I stopped worrying about them, what Liam wanted, what his parents expected, what would happen if I finally stopped playing along. That night, I didn't cook dinner. I didn't clean up the dishes from the day before. I sat on the couch, reading, waiting to see what Liam would do. He lasted about 20 minutes before he finally looked up from his phone. "What's for dinner?" I turned a page. "I don't know. I'm not really hungry yet." He blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Oh, well, are you going to make something later? I figured you could handle it tonight." Liam let out a short laugh, like I had just made a joke he didn't quite get. When I didn't react, his expression shifted. "Wait, are you mad about something?" I looked at him then, really looked at him. The way he sat there, so comfortable in the assumption that I would keep taking care of everything. Like it had never once occurred to him that I might not. I smiled, just a small one, just enough to make him uneasy. "No," I said, "I'm just tired." And for the first time in years, I meant it. Liam didn't respond right away. I could see the confusion flicker across his face as he tried to make sense of what I had just said. Tired? Of course, I was tired. I worked full-time, kept the house clean, made sure he had food on the table, and handled every little detail of our lives. But he had never heard me say it like this before. Usually, when I said I was tired, it was in the middle of me doing something for him anyway. I'd sigh and say, "I'm exhausted," while washing dishes. Or, "I just need to sit down for a second," right before I'd get up again to fold his laundry. But this was different. I wasn't moving. I wasn't getting up to fix the problem. I was sitting still. And Liam? He had no idea what to do with that. He opened his mouth, then closed it, his fingers tightening around his phone. He wasn't used to this. He was used to me, the version of me that smoothed things over before there was even an argument to be had. After another few seconds, he forced out a chuckle. "All right," he said, stretching his arms over his head. "I guess I'll just order something." He said it casually, like this was no big deal. But I knew him too well. I caught the slight edge in his voice, the almost imperceptible frown as he picked up his phone. In his mind, I was playing a game, a small act of protest, a mood swing that he just had to ride out. And honestly, I think I had spent so long catering to him that he genuinely believed I would break before he did. I watched as he scrolled through his phone, placing an order. He didn't ask if I wanted anything. He didn't ask what I planned to eat. He was waiting for me to backpedal, to sigh and say, "Forget it, I'll cook something," just to avoid the tension. But I didn't. I went to bed early that night. I could hear him in the kitchen later, eating whatever takeout he ordered, leaving the empty containers on the counter. He didn't clean up. He didn't check on me. And I think, in that moment, he thought this was over. He thought I had made my point and that by morning, everything would go back to normal. But it didn't. The next day, I didn't do the laundry. I didn't refill the fridge. I didn't remind him that the electric bill was due. I didn't check his schedule to see if he needed anything for work. And slowly, things started to pile up. By the end of the week, he was wearing his last pair of clean socks. The sink was full of dishes. There was no milk in the fridge for his morning cereal. Still, he said nothing. But I could see it getting to him. The way he sighed louder every time he walked past the mess. The way he grumbled under his breath when he had to dig through the laundry basket to find something wearable. The way he expected me to step in before it got too bad. It was a test of endurance now. Who would give in first? I kept waiting for the moment he'd sit me down and say, "Hey, I get it. I see how much you do, and I appreciate you." But instead, he called his mother. I came home from work one evening to find Diane standing in my kitchen, her arms crossed over her chest, lips pressed into a thin, disapproving line. And Liam? Liam was sitting at the table, arms folded, looking far too pleased with himself. Oh, I thought, so this is how it's going to be. When I walked into the kitchen and saw Diane standing there, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, I froze. I had expected Liam to eventually say something, anything, but I had not prepared for this. Diane, standing in my kitchen, as if she had every right to be there. Liam didn't even look up when I walked in. He just sat there, his posture stiff, as though waiting for a verdict. It was like he'd already picked his side. "Well, darling," Diane began, her voice syrupy sweet but sharp underneath. "I understand things have been a bit tense around here." She glanced at Liam, then back to me, a barely concealed smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. I just wanted to come over and offer my help. I didn't even hide my disbelief. "Your help," I repeated, my voice tight, but I managed to keep my composure. "Yes, sweetheart," Diane said, her tone patronizing as ever. "I'm concerned about you. Liam has been telling me that you've been acting a little off lately. Not your usual self, if you know what I mean." I looked at Liam, and finally, he met my gaze. The apologetic look in his eyes was almost laughable. He had done this. He had called her, told her I was being difficult or withholding affection. And now she was here to fix me, to remind me of my place. I could feel the anger start to bubble up, but I knew I couldn't explode right now. Not when they were both watching, waiting for me to make the first move. Diane continued, oblivious to the storm that was brewing in my mind. "You know, honey, I've always said that a marriage is about balance. A woman's job is to make her husband's life easy, to make him feel comfortable, relaxed. That's how it works. Liam's such a good man, and it's so important to keep things smooth between you two. It's how it works for you, isn't it?" The words slipped out before I could stop them, sharper than I intended. Diane blinked, taken aback for a moment. Then she raised an eyebrow, the kind of expression someone gives when they think they've been insulted but are too proud to admit it. "Excuse me," she asked, her voice still sweet but now tinged with something colder. I didn't back down. "You think that's the only way a marriage works? But I don't believe in this give everything and get nothing system, Diane." I turned my gaze to Liam, feeling my heart pound in my chest. "I'm done being your mother's unpaid maid, Liam. I've been done for a while now." Liam shifted in his chair, but his face didn't show a hint of guilt. Instead, there was a faint flicker of frustration, like I had somehow ruined his plans. "Look, babe," he said, his voice unervingly calm. "I don't know what you're trying to do here, but she's just trying to help. We're just talking." But it wasn't just talking. It was a power play. Diane knew exactly what she was doing. She was trying to make me feel small, to make me second-guess my decision to stop catering to them. And Liam? He was still going along with it, still allowing his mom to dictate the terms of our marriage. I was done. It took everything in me to keep my voice steady. "No, Liam, you don't get to excuse this anymore. You and your mother have been treating me like I don't matter, like I'm just someone to clean up after you, cook for you, and be whatever you need without any regard for my own needs." Diane took a step closer, her tone dropping into something more dangerous, more cutting. "You should be careful, dear. I think you're making a big mistake. You don't know what you're messing with here. Liam is a great catch, and I'm sure it's just a phase. But if you keep pushing him, you might lose him." I felt the weight of those words settle over me like a heavy cloak. They thought I'd crumble under the pressure. They thought I'd back down because they always got their way. But this was different. This was the moment I realized that I was no longer willing to live in the shadow of their manipulation. I needed a plan. I needed something that would shake them up, something they wouldn't see coming. Because I knew one thing for sure: if I didn't act now, I'd be stuck in this suffocating cycle forever. The idea came to me quiet but insistent. If Liam couldn't see what was wrong, if he couldn't understand the impact of his actions on me, then I'd make him understand. And if his parents thought they could control me, they'd learn that I wasn't someone to be underestimated. So, I started plotting. The first step was subtle, but it was necessary. I spent the next few days pretending like everything was fine. I went to work. I cooked dinner. I cleaned the house. But all the while, I kept my distance from Liam, acting just aloof enough for him to start noticing. He didn't ask about it at first. He was used to my quiet frustration, the way I would silently handle everything, hoping he'd eventually realize. But now, I was intentional about it. I didn't sit next to him on the couch. I didn't ask him if he wanted me to pick something up from the store. I didn't make his lunch. Every time he looked at me, I was just a little colder, a little more distant. And after a few days of this, I saw it. He began to get irritated. At first, he tried the usual things, joking around, asking if I was okay. But when I didn't respond the way he was used to, his face would cloud with confusion, then frustration. He was beginning to feel the lack of my presence in his life. He was starting to realize what I had been doing for him all along. But the real breakthrough came one evening when he came home and asked, "Why didn't you make anything for dinner?" I wasn't cooking anymore. I was done with it. The silent protest was building. And when I simply shrugged and said, "I don't feel like it," his jaw clenched. "Are you seriously just going to stop cooking?" he asked, voice tight. I met his eyes, unflinching. "Yes, Liam. I'm seriously not going to cook. You can do it for once." There was a silence between us, thick with something that felt like guilt, but also something else. Liam, for the first time, seemed like he was starting to see me, really see me, in a way he hadn't before. He was starting to realize the depth of his mistakes, but instead of apologizing or changing his behavior, he doubled down. A few days later, I came home from work to find Liam on the phone with his mother. I could hear her voice carrying through the hallway, and I had no intention of letting it slide anymore. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms as I listened. "I don't know what to do, Mom." Liam's voice was strained, like he was holding back from sounding too frustrated. "She's being unreasonable. I don't know what's gotten into her. She doesn't cook for me. She doesn't do anything around here anymore. It's like she's just throwing a tantrum." Liam, Diane's voice cut in, smooth but sharp. "She wants attention. She's trying to make you feel guilty. You've always done what's best for her, and now she's trying to manipulate you." I couldn't help it. I stepped forward, my voice cool, and even as I interrupted, "No, Liam, she's right. I'm trying to make you realize how much I've been doing for you, how much I've been putting up with. But you don't get it. You never did." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, then Liam's voice, even quieter, "Mom, I'll call you back." He hung up and turned to me, his eyes narrowing. "You had to do that, didn't you?" I tilted my head. "You called your mom to complain about me?" Liam opened his mouth, but no words came out. For a second, he looked like he might finally understand the magnitude of what he was doing. But then, just like that, the moment passed. He crossed his arms and muttered, "This is ridiculous." The following days were tense, but they were also strangely empowering. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't letting Liam dictate how I felt. He didn't get to pull me back into the old routines. He didn't get to play the victim, acting like I was the one causing the problems when, in reality, he had always been the problem. But the real turning point came a week later when I decided it was time to confront his parents. I hadn't told Liam about it. I didn't need to. I had already made up my mind. I showed up at Gerard and Diane's house unannounced, standing in their front yard and staring at the door for a few moments, letting the weight of the situation settle. I wasn't just confronting them about their treatment of me. I was finally standing up for myself. I was making sure they knew they couldn't walk all over me anymore, and that I wasn't going to be the perfect daughter-in-law they had always imagined. Diane answered the door, her face lighting up in that fake, overly sweet way that I had come to loathe. "Sweetheart, what a surprise," she said, leaning against the doorframe. "I didn't waste any time. We need to talk." Her smile faltered for just a split second, but she recovered quickly. "Of course, come in." I stepped inside, my back straight, my heart pounding with anticipation. "I'm done being your doormat," I said, voice steady but firm. "I'm done with you treating me like a servant, like I'm here just to make sure Liam is comfortable. I've spent years taking care of him, taking care of everything, and I'm done. I want you both to understand that if you ever try to pull this again, I won't back down." Gerard, who had been sitting in the living room, raised his eyebrows. Diane's lips pressed together in a thin line, but she said nothing at first. "You think this is a phase, don't you?" I asked, my eyes narrowing. "You think I'll cave and go back to being the perfect wife? But that's not happening." Diane's gaze flickered to Gerard, and for the first time, they both seemed unsettled. "I'm not asking you for anything," I continued, "but I am demanding one thing: respect. I don't want your pity or your attempts to fix me. I don't need it." Gerard shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable. "Now, listen," but I wasn't done. "No, Gerard. You listen. I'm done with your manipulation, and I'm done with this family. If you want to keep pretending that I'm just some extension of Liam, you can, but I won't be a part of it anymore." I turned to leave, and as I opened the door, I heard Diane call out, "You'll regret this, you know? No one will ever treat you the way Liam does. He's perfect. You'll see." I closed the door behind me. A few days after my confrontation with Gerard and Diane, things started to settle into a strange kind of silence. Liam, of course, didn't understand. He didn't get it. How could he, when his entire life had been built on expectations that his mother and father placed on him? But that silence was the calm before the storm, and I knew it wouldn't last. I didn't reach out to Liam for days. He sent me a couple of texts, nothing too desperate, just the usual, "Where are you?" or "I'm sorry if you're mad, let's talk." But I didn't respond. I wasn't going to fall back into the pattern where I was the one who always fixed things. Then one evening, Liam came home early from work. I was in the kitchen, pretending to be busy with something, anything to avoid the confrontation I knew was coming. But he stood in the doorway, his expression tight, his body tense, like he'd finally run out of patience. "You've had your little tantrum," he said, voice low but filled with a kind of anger I had never heard before. "But you can't just walk away like this. You can't just leave me to deal with everything on my own. I don't know what you want, but this," he motioned between us, "isn't working anymore." I didn't respond right away. Instead, I just stared at him, waiting for the weight of his words to sink in. Finally, I said, "That's the point, Liam. I've been doing everything for us, for you for years. And you didn't even notice. You didn't care how it made me feel." His jaw clenched. "You're acting like I don't care. But I do. You're all I have, and you're throwing it all away over nothing." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm finally standing up for myself. And you know what? It feels good to not constantly be at your beck and call or at your parents." He opened his mouth to argue, but I cut him off. "Liam, it's been you and your mom, you and your dad, this whole time. I've always been the background player, the one who made sure everything went smoothly for you. But I am not invisible anymore." The silence that followed was thick with unsaid words. Liam finally exhaled, his frustration mounting. "So, that's it then? You're done?" I met his gaze. "I am. You've never taken me seriously, and now you're mad because I'm not doing things the way you expect me to. But I'm done. This isn't healthy for me, and it isn't healthy for you either." He stood there, silent, his face a mix of hurt and anger. Then, without another word, he grabbed his coat and left. I didn't hear from him for a week after that. In that time, I realized something. I wasn't scared anymore. Not of him, not of his parents. I had spent so long trying to be the perfect wife, the perfect daughter-in-law, the perfect woman for everyone but myself. And once I stopped, once I realized I didn't need their approval to exist, everything changed. Liam eventually came back, but not the way I expected. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't even trying to understand. He just wanted things to go back to the way they were. But I couldn't let that happen. Not anymore. I told him I wanted a separation. I told him I couldn't continue living in a house where his parents always had a say, where he would always choose them over me. He didn't like it. He hated it, actually. He tried to make me feel guilty, but by then, I had already made up my mind. I left that night, taking a few things with me, and I didn't look back. As for Gerard and Diane, well, they tried their usual tactics. They called, they sent messages, they showed up at my apartment. But I wasn't scared of them anymore. I was finally free of their manipulation, their guilt trips, and their control. Liam reached out to me a few more times, but it was clear he wasn't going to change. He would always choose his parents over me, and I had to be okay with that. But here's the kicker. After all of this, after everything I had endured, his family still didn't get it. They still thought I was being unreasonable. Diane actually had the audacity to send me a message saying, "You'll never find someone like Liam. You're throwing away the best thing you had." And I'm sitting here, in my new apartment, living my life on my terms, realizing that maybe for once, I made the right choice. But now, I'm wondering, am I the a-hole here? Should I have tried harder to make it work with Liam? Or was this the best thing for me? I've spent so many years trying to make everyone happy, but maybe it was time to put myself first. What do you all think?